Following a disastrous debate, embarrassing poll numbers, and calls from Democrats to step down, 4 years too late, after much speculation, Joe Biden has officially dropped out. And moments after, it's almost as if the opportunist fell out of a coconut tree and possibly into the nomination for the Democratic Party. The lady whose call to fame as vice president is laughing could soon be laughing her way into the Oval Office. If this month proves anything to us, it's that anything is possible. And I fear it's just the beginning. As I was literally writing a video about how Joe Biden is unfit to be our president, now, and to begin with, the news comes out. Joe Biden is dropping out of the race and will no longer be seeking a second term, citing wanting to focus solely on his duties as president as the main reason behind his decision. If you saw the debate last month, it's safe to say that now all of America thinks that he is unfit to lead. And that is the reason why. After months of gaslighting by Democratic leaders,
is something that Joe Biden has worked on diligently each and every day on behalf of working Americans, and I expect him to continue to do that for the next 4 years and 8 months.
And we have to make sure people know. We have to respect them. We have to listen to them. We have to build community, continue to build community with them. I'm very excited about the credentials, the legitimacy, the leverage that Joe Biden has given to America's working families.
The truth finally sees the light. Let me ask you a quick question before we move on. Does this man look okay to you?
Mr. President, thank you.
Okay, gotcha. Anyway, if you've watched my videos before, you've probably heard me say that I believe our reality is extremely scripted. Well, if this last month in America proves anything, it's that. From the debate, to the attempt on the president's life, to the success of the RNC, to Joe Biden dropping out, to the endorsement of Kamala, it is, in my opinion, that this process has been planned out for quite some time. The establishment has known for a while that Joe Biden was going through extensive cognitive decline. If you've been paying attention, even in just the last 2 years, that is extremely clear. They quite literally just needed to time everything out perfectly to move him out of the way at just the right moment. Now, like Vivek Ramaswamy said last year, they can put up the actual candidate that's going to be the Democratic nominee.
I also want to close with one message to the Democrat Party. End this farce that Joe Biden is going to be your nominee. We know he's not even the president of the United States. He's a puppet for the managerial class. So have the guts to step up and be honest about who you're actually going to put up so we can have an honest debate. Biden should step aside, end his candidacy now, so we can see whether it's Newsom or Michelle Obama or whoever else.
All right,
just
Mr.
tell us the truth so we can have an honest debate.
Ambassador.
Interestingly enough, his announcement following him dropping out might lead us to the puppet that they'll be putting up next. Immediately following him dropping out, like clockwork, we get the Kamala endorsement. And if Kamala were to actually be the nominee, boy are we in for another 4, possibly 8 years of trouble. Before we talk about the amazing work she's done as VP to deserve the role as president, let's talk about her star-studded career first. My attempt with this video is to dismantle the stupid little narrative that she's only disliked because of her laugh. The real reasons are extensive, and let's not be dense because we're not intelligent enough to do our own research. From attending parties and rubbing elbows with Ghislaine Maxwell, Kamala has quite the story. Her rise to fame came after an affair with Willie Brown, whom she met when she was 30 and he was 61. And it indeed was an affair, by the way, because I've seen some discourse on that. If you're not divorced, that's an affair. Just because it wasn't a secret doesn't mean it was right. To those that aren't aware, Willie Brown was a very important Democrat leader back in the day. At the time, Willie Brown was the California Assembly Speaker and later the mayor of San Francisco. He was very influential in the world of politics, especially California. It's safe to say Kamala was living it up. Willie wasn't shy to shower her with extravagant gifts, like a BMW, according to the Free Beacon. He then, in 1994, appointed his lover to the State Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board and later to the California Medical Assistance Commission, according to the San Francisco Weekly. The affair then ended shortly before he became mayor. While disputed, especially by her, many say that this catapulted her into a political career. But don't take my word for it. Who cares about my opinion? Willie Brown made it pretty clear in a weekly column he does for the San Francisco Chronicle. I've been peppered with calls from the national media about my relationship with Kamala Harris, most of which I have not returned. Yes, we dated. It was more than 20 years ago. Yes, I may have influenced her career by appointing her to 2 state commissions when I was Assembly Speaker. And I certainly helped her with her first race for district attorney in San Francisco. I have also helped the careers of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Governor Gavin Newsom, Senator Dianne Feinstein, and a host of other politicians. The difference is that Harris is the only one who, after I helped her, sent word that I would be indicted if I so much as jaywalked while she was DA. That's politics for you. She then dated Montel Williams in 2001, which of course pushed her even further into the public limelight.
Long before she met Doug Emhoff, she dated some prominent men, including in 2001, former talk show host Montel Williams. Back then, he was the famous one and had to introduce her to the paparazzi.
Then finally, in 2003, Kamala was elected to a high power position as the district attorney of San Francisco. Kamala didn't get to where she is because of her politics. It was through social climbing. Some would say hoeing, but I won't use language like that. If Kamala is to be nominated, then I think it's fair that we break down her political career and the policies that got her where she is today. Let's start with Kamala's criminal justice record as Attorney General of California, a record that has been ridiculed by many. According to Kamala, her goal from very early on in her career was criminal justice reform. As Attorney General for the state of California, she created quite the portfolio for herself.
Build more schools. We protest. Build more schools, less jails. Put money into education, not prisons. There's a fundamental problem with that approach.
All you have to do is a quick Google search to find out she is a lover of the for-profit prison system. Listen to how her record was described in this CNN article. Time after time, when progressives urged her to embrace criminal justice reforms as district attorney and then the state's attorney general, Ms. Harris opposed them or stayed silent. Most troubling, Ms. Harris fought tooth and nail to uphold wrongful convictions that have been secured through official misconduct that included evidence tampering, false testimony, and the suppression of crucial information by prosecutors. She was also a supporter of the death penalty and then tried to pretend like she wasn't when that became an unpopular opinion. Most people who believe in criminal justice reform typically don't believe in the death penalty. Typically, in order for you to reform prisoners, they actually have to be alive. Personally, I believe jail till death is worse than death, but we're not here to talk about me right now. Kamala, according to her, is pro-death penalty. having defended California's stance on it. Kamala also regularly put nonviolent marijuana offenders in jail to be used as free prison labor, aka modern slavery, something that she's been publicly ridiculed on several times at this point.
She has one of the worst civil rights record of any public official. She's the author of one of the primary authors of the school to prison pipeline. She kept 5,000 people despite a Supreme Court order that she release 5,000 prisoners of nonviolent drug crimes who were illegally in California jails. She kept them in there saying that we needed them for firefighting and for other public work services. And that's just a modern version of indentured servitude, a modern version of slavery.
Kamala sent 1,560 people to jail for nonviolent marijuana-related charges between 2011 and 2016. Then on the 2020 campaign trail, she admitted to smoking pot for fun and laughed about it on The Breakfast Club.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like in
And
college,
I inhaled. I did inhale.
Okay.
It was a long time ago.
Harris explains her pro-pot stance and admits that she indulged in the substance while in college. Then this exchange happened.
What does Kamala Harris listen to?
What were you listening to when you was high? What was on? What song was it?
Oh, my goodness. Oh, yeah, definitely Snoop. Tupac.
Like most Americans, that wouldn't be much of a shocker had she not worked so hard to put people who do that in prison. In fact, here's a portrait of Kamala laughing made out of all of the men that she kept in prison past their sentences to use as free prison labor. Haha. It's funny because it's true, right, Kamala? Kamala doesn't care about criminal justice reform. That's just her platform to get her to the top.
So I'm going to read you a quote real quick. The job of a progressive prosecutor is to look out for those overlooked, to speak up for those whose voices aren't being heard, to see and address the causes of crime, not just their consequences, and to shine a light on the inequality and unfairness that lead to injustice. It is to recognize that not everyone needs punishment, but what many need, quite obviously, is help. Kamala Harris wrote that in her book, The Truths We Hold. Does that sound consistent with the kind of with the brand of justice that you saw administered by offices that she was running?
It definitely sounds like Kamala Harris right now as a senator. But at the time of her being the head district attorney of San Francisco, that is almost polar opposite of what I felt and what our community felt in San Francisco.
The woman who in 2021 tweeted this, "The George Floyd Justice in Policing Act represents an important step towards ensuring more accountability and transparency in policing," also failed as Attorney General to investigate the fatal shootings of 2 unarmed men within the same year. Kamala was also caught in 2010 during her campaign for Attorney General, accepting donations from donors with ties to the for-profit prison industry. The arbiter of justice and reform was caught taking money from companies whose mission statement is exploiting human beings in prison, including taking $5,000 from Core Civic, previously under the name Corrections Corporations of America. While Attorney General, Kamala supported and helped implement the Gun Violence Restraining Order law, which was designed to prevent gun violence by allowing family members and law enforcement to seek court orders to temporarily seize firearms from individuals deemed a threat. Basically, if I felt that you shouldn't have a gun, I could just make up whatever bullshit reason and strip you of your Second Amendment right with the state's help. I don't know about you, but I want my president to uphold the Constitution, not tiptoe around it. Kamala is also quite the dishonest individual. She possesses a very unique quality that very few politicians have anymore: the ability to lie to you with a smile and make you think that you're just the most important thing in the room. A trait we saw in Barack Obama, loved by many and hated by countless orphans in Iraq and Syria. What more proof of that do you need than having your vice president always tell you how well Joe Biden was doing.
Our president is in good shape, in good health, tireless, vibrant, and I have no doubt about the strength of the work that we have done. We have a very bold and vibrant president in Joe Biden. But he is an extraordinary leader, and I wish that people could see what I see, because there's only one person who sits behind that resolute desk. First of all, I would say that age is more than a chronological fact.
Are you prepared to be commander-in-chief?
Yes, I am, if necessary. But Joe Biden is going to be fine. I'm not going to engage in that hypothetical, because Joe Biden is very much alive and running for re-election.
What'd she say the debate was like again? A slow start with a strong finish?
Yes, there was a slow start, but it was a strong finish. And
right. During the 2020 debate cycle, then opponents Kamala and Joe had quite the tense exchange after Kamala brought up this.
I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I did not praise racist. That is not true.
Piling on, she took on Biden's opposition in the 70s to federally ordered busing in order to integrate public schools. And she made it personal.
And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me. Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No,
do you agree?
I did not oppose busing in America. What I opposed is busing ordered by the Department of Education.
Now, one could respect her attempt at a takedown of her political opponent by highlighting potential faults in his career, but your stance becomes a little bit more difficult to respect, though, when you accept the spot as vice president in his administration. So you mean to tell me, in this day and age, that you accepted the opportunity to work with a man that you insinuated is an outdated racist in a heartbeat? And then people wonder why it's easy to infer that she's a social climber? She wasn't just okay with accepting his racist past, but also his history of alleged sexual assault. In 1993, Tara Reid accused Joe Biden of sexual assault. Now, I'm not going to go into depth on the allegations, but there is one important thing to note. In August of 2020, Kamala Harris made quite the statement on these allegations. Quote, "I believe them and I respect them being able to tell their story and having the courage to do it." The woman who from one side of her mouth is telling you to believe all women also went and served 4 years with that same guy in his administration. Keep in mind, she could have said no when he asked. But from very early on, it's clear that Kamala had her eyes on the top. Just like a typical elitist, better to further that career than to be authentic with your beliefs and opinions. Let's be very clear. Kamala Harris is the vice president because she is a black woman. From very early on, Joe was advised, and some would say pushed, to pick a black female vice president. Some might say it's racist to pick somebody solely off of their race and gender, but that's what happened, and everybody just went along with it. She is not politically talented. She can barely formulate a sentence.
I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know?
Kamala's race was perfect, though. Of course, being from a stereotypical black household, as you see pictured. And as vice president, she proved that she is more than unqualified. To those who say people are slut-shaming for saying she slept her way to the top, is it? If you've heard her speak as vice president, and you've gotten far along enough in the video to hear about her early start, it's not that difficult to formulate that conclusion.
Remember Venn diagrams, those 3 circles? Right. And then let's just see where they overlap. You will not be surprised because I have constructed a Venn diagram on this. Remember those 3 circles, how they overlap? I love Venn diagrams. So I just do. Whenever you're dealing with conflict, pull out a Venn diagram, right? And so, the 3 circles. The television coverage of just yesterday, that's on top of everything else that we know and don't know yet, based on what we've just been able to see. And because we've seen it or not doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but just limit it to what we have seen. For us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been,
6 former administration officials last week wrote that open letter urging the administration to change course, to change strategy. Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree.
Or what about Laughin' Kamala?
Poor hubby. Poor hubby.
Nah.
Every time she laughs for what seems like hours at a time, it wastes time she could have used actually saying something smart.
Space is exciting.
This woman will most likely be the Democratic nominee soon. If you want a president that's going to seal our borders and protect our citizens, don't count on Kamala.
We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
Took her forever to even go to the border, and when she did, she didn't do anything. The border crisis is as bad as ever.
Tonight, nearly 10,000 migrants a day. That is what federal officials say they are encountering at the U.S. southern border on average in December. That's among the highest numbers ever recorded.
Where Kamala is placed, it seems the advisors and assistants can't even stand her. As VP, the environment around her has been described as far from positive. Being around her is described as not a healthy environment by 22 ex-staff members. They go into detail on their experience, saying, "People are thrown under the bus from the very top. There are very short fuses, and it's an abusive environment. It's not a healthy environment, and people often feel mistreated. It's not a place where people feel supported, but a place where people feel treated like shit." She created an insular environment where ideas are ignored or met with harsh dismissals and decisions are dragged out. Often, they said, she refuses to take responsibility for delicate issues and blames staffers for the negative results that ensue, with some looking for new jobs just 6 months into working with her. A book from 2022 saying it was Kamala's deep insecurity that causes such an environment. I think the most dangerous thing she did as vice president was tempt Vladimir Putin.
But if you believe Putin has made up his mind, what leverage do you really have? Why not put those sanctions in place now?
The purpose of the sanctions has always been and continues to be deterrence. But let's also recognize the unique nature of the sanctions that we have outlined. These are some of the greatest sanctions, if not the strongest, that we've ever issued. As I articulated yesterday, it is directed at institutions, in particular financial institutions, and individuals, and it will exact absolute harm for the Russian economy and their government.
But if Putin has made up his mind, do you feel that this threat that has been looming is really going to deter him?
Absolutely. We strongly believe, and remember also that the sanctions are a product not only of our perspective as the United States, but a shared perspective among our allies.
And the allied relationship is such that we have agreed that the deterrence effect of these sanctions is still a meaningful one, especially because, remember also, we still sincerely hope that there is a diplomatic path out of this moment. And within the context then of the fact that that window is still although it is absolutely narrowing, but within the context of a diplomatic path still being open, the deterrence effect, we believe, has merit.
A day later, Putin invaded Ukraine. The only thing I will say is that if the debate in June was historic for all the wrong reasons, the next debate is going to be one for the books. If we see a Trump versus Harris debate, Trump is ready. Even when Kamala thought she was ready during the debates in 2020, she wasn't. And it took just about 40 seconds to dismantle her entire campaign.
Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
For the party that alleges that they want to make it easier for you to vote, they purposely waited for the final moment to swap the candidate and stop you from choosing. Nobody voted for this woman in a primary. Nobody besides Gen Z even likes her.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid. That is why we put them in dormitories, and they have a resident assistant. They make really bad decisions.
And they only like her because she is a meme, which for a long time is the only reason why I liked her, because the woman is insufferable. But she sure makes a good meme, I will say.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
She gets praise from gays like this, who make being gay and going to Fire Island their whole personality. Because being this type of gay is the new cool thing. Huffing poppers like the big bad wolf and having more sexual partners than numbers in the yellow pages is where all that equality got us. So nobody likes her, but suddenly Joe Biden drops out of the race, endorses her, and now all of a sudden everybody is throwing their support for her. Hillary and Bill Clinton, Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, all the usual suspects coming out of the woodworks to endorse her. Suddenly people like Alex Soros feel like they need to vocalize an endorsement of her. Yet if I come on here to tell you that this was all planned for quite some time, I'm what the CIA calls a conspiracy theorist, right? Suddenly I'm just a crazy right-wing Trump voter. And before anyone tries to explain this off by saying that the endorsement was obvious because he's her VP, it's not obvious. They don't even like each other. There have been reports for a long time regarding them not liking each other. She alluded to him being a racist and alleged that he sexually assaulted people. Yet she ran alongside him anyway. Had his name been Trump, do you think she would have had a change of heart? Do I think Joe Biden should resign? No. In fact, I wanted Joe Biden to stay the nominee. As I previously stated in my video on the debate, Joe Biden is the perfect example of the left's crumbling platform. I also do not want Kamala Harris to be president. I hope that at this point you understand why. I'm fearful for our country. Since the announcement he was dropping out, we have yet to see President Joe Biden out in the public. They are yet again citing COVID as a reason for his absence, which is why during her first live event, Joe had to call in to speak to the public alongside her?
Joe, I know you're still on the call, and we've been talking every day. Joe, I know you're still on the call, on the call. No, you're still on the call.
Interesting. The smoke and mirrors in this country is getting old, and people are getting really upset. This debate marked some sort of shift in our universe, and since then, everything has been tilted on its head, and I fear it is only the beginning. I don't say that to scare you, but to prepare you. We were almost stripped of the Republican candidate. The Democratic candidate was pushed to drop out, and immediately after, a new face emerged. All of this feels too pre-orchestrated for me. And if you've been paying attention to the Secret Service hearings, I'm sure that you can agree. This country has become a Hollywood blockbuster, and we are tired of playing extras in your film. Alrighty, y'all. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Go ahead and tell me who you're going to be voting for in the comments and why. I definitely want to know. I'll respect your opinion. Make sure you turn on that notification bell and follow me on to all my socials. I appreciate you guys always. I will see you on the next one.